Продовжувати. Сьогодні ми говорили про нові санкції, також про вторинні, про спеціальні тарифи в торгівлі, які можуть допомогти. Друге, коаліція охочих працює дуже активно. Військові, політики, радники, є вагомі напрацювання і дуже багато днів, тижнів працювали наші команди. І фактично ми розуміємо, якою має бути основа для реальних гарантій безпеки. Базова рамка є. Також розуміємо, що гарантії безпеки – це не про майбутнє колись, це про ситуацію і зараз теж. Сильна українська армія є і буде центральним елементом гарантій безпеки. Відповідно, це можливості нашої армії, це і зброя, і фінансування, і тренування, і виробництво зброї. Все це забезпечуємо. І це має бути через рік, це має бути через 5 років, через 10 років, як в умовах війни зараз, так і для гарантування безпеки потім, в мирний час. У нас є основа для плану щодо сил, щодо конкретних кроків. Визначаємо, які країни братимуть участь в тому чи іншому компоненті безпеки, хто на землі, хто може допомогти в небі, хто в морському просторі, хто в кіберпросторі, хто не має власних сил, але може долучитись фінансово. Також це конкретика щодо виробництв. Ми констатуємо, що європейські виробничі лінії працюють поки що недостатньо, але це все потрібно і зрозуміло, як нарощувати. Обсяги мають бути більшими, швидкість має бути більшою. Також ми маємо значні виробничі потужності в Україні сьогодні, які не використовуються через дефіцит і брак коштів. Це дійсно серйозно. Майже 60% всієї зброї, яку ми сьогодні використовуємо в Україні, вироблено у нас в Україні. Українці в цьому успішні, я вважаю, якісні, і маємо допомогти кожній європейській країні бути успішною в тому чи іншому виробництві. Технологічне лідерство для Європи критично важливе. Це своя здорова промисловість і достатньо робочих місць, достатньо інвестицій, достатньо взаємодії, лідерства в глобальній конкуренції. Європа має бути лідером, і ми, зокрема, це просуваємо, коли будуємо нові гарантії безпеки для України. Готуємо документи щодо гарантій та визначаємо інвестиції у безпеку від кожної країни. Як Еммануель сказав, 26 країн погодились надати Україні гарантії безпеки. І я думаю, що на сьогодні за довгий час це така серйозна, перша така серйозна дуже конкретика. І я вітаю нас з цим всіх, і тебе вітаю, і Кіра, як головуючих коаліції охочих. Третє. Важливо, що Америка з нами, ми працюємо в багатьох форматах, від таких програм, як Pearl, що дозволяють купувати американську зброю, до готовності Америки брати участь в гарантіях безпеки довгостроково. Сьогодні ми говорили з президентом Трампом. Ми дякуємо за підтримку. Тривала розмова, детальна, про те, як підштовхувати ситуацію до миру. Ми обговорили різні опції. Найголовніше – це тиск, щоб сильними заходами, зокрема економічними, змусити до припинення війни. Ключ до миру – позбавлення російської машини війни, грошей, позбавлення ресурсів.
Because right now is Tim Kirby, he's an American journalist, he's joining me from Moscow. Tim, let's understand from you, right now the Paris summit has concluded. There is a press briefing that is being addressed by Zelenskyy, and a strong announcement that has been made by Macron, the president of France. He said there are 26 nations that are committed to providing security guarantees to Ukraine in event of a peace deal that gets signed between Moscow and Kyiv. How do you have to react to this?
Well, nothing is different. I mean, from the beginning of this hot phase of this conflict starting in 2022, Europe, for the most part, has promised to support the Ukrainian side. How have they done that? They've sent some better weapons, some worse weapons, some obsolete weapons, some weapons they didn't even really have to send, and threw money at the problem. And also provided a lot of PR support and empty words. And this is just exactly the same thing. This is nothing different, nothing surprising. It's the same sort of methodology, in quotes, happening over and over again.
Right. Absolutely. Also, there has been a video conference that has been held between the European leaders and US President Donald Trump. What are the hopes that there could be a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia in the coming weeks? Also, the proposal by President Putin that Zelenskyy should visit Moscow to hold that peace deal meeting, peace deal negotiation. Do you think that will be acceptable to Ukraine or to the other European leaders?
No, there's probably not going to be a peace deal because no side of the conflict can back down. For the Russians, this is an existential war for survival, their geopolitical survival, their national sovereignty. For the Ukrainians, or at least the powers that be in Kiev, I should say more specifically, it's kind of become the same thing. If they surrender, it's over for them. For the Europeans, it's also a very similar situation where a lot of their future depends on this. They essentially put all their chips down on this project, and it'll be very hard for them to pull out of it, especially for the people who have the more globalist or monopolar view of the world. Essentially admitting that they've lost is definitely the end of that world, and many of the European leaders especially are trying to hold out in the hopes that maybe at some point in the near future the sanctions will finally take hold and break the Russians, or something will change within Russia, or some other factor will arise that will change the nature of the war. But essentially, the only thing that all the parties involved can really agree on is that the war continuing is an acceptable option. And so it's going to.
Right, absolutely. Now, here on, after the Alaska summit that has taken place, do you think there is any positive momentum towards some sort of a ceasefire or a peace negotiation looking forward?
Again, I really highly doubt that. I think that there won't really be a moment of suing for peace. I think that this thing is going to grind itself down to the very end. It's going to be that sort of situation because, again, the Russian side has stated over and over again that if there's going to be a peace agreement, the opposing side has to adjust the root causes, and that is very unlikely to happen from Zelenskyy and the people around him and the Europeans. Can you really imagine that people like Macron, who you just mentioned, are really going to one day wake up and be like, you know what? Yeah, Ukraine's never going to be in NATO. We can't ever put our Western NATO troops on their territory. We're just going to have to give this thing up to the Russians and get rid of all the Nazis and demilitarize it. They're never going to agree to that. And thus, I really don't see any peace project being successful. Of course, the Russians and the Americans, seemingly in Alaska and even before that, have had a lot of discussions about maybe we could presume how the world is going to look and how they can live together in somewhat harmony after the war is over. That seems to be happening. But making the war end in a very UN-friendly handshake sort of way doesn't seem to be on the table. I wish it would be, but it's not.
Okay, some of the news points that are coming in from that press conference that is being addressed by Zelenskyy and by Macron. Here Zelenskyy says that everybody agrees that Russia is rejecting any peace initiative. He's also said that while he was in conversation with a phone call with Donald Trump, he has discussed the pressure that needs to be mounted on Russia. He says the documents are being prepared by each of the countries on their contribution to the security guarantees. How do you view the congregation that has come at the Paris summit, particularly focusing on the security guarantees and deployment of troops of the NATO allies and the European countries on the borders of Ukraine? Is this going to be acceptable to Russia, and if not, why?
Well, from the very beginning of the special military operation, the Russian side has repeated over and over again demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. And now that the war has gone on and there are now 4 new territories within the Russian Federation that used to be part of 1991 Ukraine, well, anything that goes against those basic 3 things of the way the Russians see this war, their sort of 3 points, anything that violates that, they're not going to agree to. And when it comes to the perhaps secession of territory, their constitution forbids them, including Putin himself, from doing it. So there's really no way. Maybe from a European perspective, that seems unreasonable. But obviously, from the Russian perspective, it seems like that's a bare minimum offer of what should be on the table.
Tim, stay on with me. I'm also being joined by John Rosamundo. He's the president of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical analyst. He's joining me from Washington, D.C. John, thank you very much. And your first reactions, the big statement coming in from Macron, 26 nations from Europe are committed to providing security guarantees and deployment of troops along the Ukrainian border.
Well, I think that, barring a peace treaty, I mean, that is exactly what the Russians invaded Ukraine over. They were worried about moving NATO troops to their borders. I think that it's going to, lead to further escalation. You have the talk about the French having up to 50,000 beds for casualties from Ukraine by March of next year. So I really think that that Macron is playing a dark game.
Okay, now do you think this coalition of the willing does have a substantive role to play in how the peace deal happens, if at all it happens?
Well, I think in terms of, if we have a Korea situation in which you have a ceasefire and you have, troops from such nations augmenting the Ukrainians behind whatever, de facto border emerges, I think that it would have a role to play there. But not until Zelenskyy agrees to A, step aside, which is a condition the Russians are imposing, and B, if they are able to get the Ukrainians to agree to at least a de facto loss of those territories.
Again, how do you view the very restrained stance that has been taken by Donald Trump when it comes to showing its support for providing security guarantees? Trump has been reticent and refused to provide those guarantees or deployment of troops along the border, even as Europe continues to persuade Trump to play a more active role in securing and ensuring safety and security for Ukraine.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump has said all along he wants 0 American troops there. I mean, that's something he ran about. He said about keeping American boots off the ground. We can't be the world's policeman. But I think that, some sort of, de facto, protection for Ukraine against future Russian aggression, combined with a de facto acceptance of the Russian occupation of the territories that NATO has no way militarily to throw the Russians off of, is sort of, what you're going to have to accept.
Right. Also, do you think Trump has been quite tapered ever since he has held that meeting with President Putin in Alaska, that Alaska summit? Because even after Putin yesterday made this very strong statement that either Zelenskyy should come to Moscow and hold those peace negotiations with him, otherwise he will be bound to act and forced to end this war. We have not seen a retaliatory remark coming in from Trump thus far. It's been very tepid, like I said yesterday. All he said was that he is hoping and wanting for peace to prevail between both countries.
Well, I think that you have a lot of hyperbole, a lot of bluster. You also had Putin saying that the Ukrainian army is not up to the challenge of driving the Russians out, saying that it has a readiness of less than 50%. I mean, there's a lot of happy talk about how the Ukrainians have held off the Russians, but the thing is the Ukrainians are not strong enough themselves to end this war. But when Putin talks about moving the needle against Ukraine, he's struggled. All he's been fighting for are a few miles of territory that go back and forth.
Right, absolutely. All right. Thank you, John, for joining me. And that's the press conference that has just concluded. And the important remarks made by Zelenskyy asking United States of America that U.S. should partake in providing security guarantees to Ukraine. And of course, Macron saying that there will be 26 nations within Europe that are committed to ensuring safety and security of Ukraine in event of a peace negotiation being signed between Ukraine and Russia. Thank you, Tim Kirby, also for joining me on the telecast and sharing your views. Now, the Portuguese Prime Minister Luis Montenegro has called the funicular derailment in Lisbon one of the biggest human tragedies in the country. The accident killed at least 16 people and has injured 21. Listen into what he said.
Ontem, Portugal foi abalado por terrível acidente com o descarrilamento do elevador da Glória no coração de Lisboa. Esta é uma das maiores tragédias humanas da nossa história recente. Portuguesas e portugueses, tendo sido uma prioridade imediata o socorro às vítimas, as autoridades competentes realizarão, com celeridade, as averiguações necessárias ao apuramento da causa deste acidente trágico, incluindo nessas averiguações a Polícia Judiciária, que está envolvida desde o primeiro momento, e o Gabinete de Prevenção e Investigação de Acidentes com Aeronaves e Acidentes Aéreos e Ferroviários. Também transmitir-vos que o Instituto de Registro e Notariado vai disponibilizar uma equipa em Lisboa para poder acelerar os registros de óbito e garantir atendimento prioritário.
Now, the yellow tram-like funicular, which is popular with tourists, careened down a steep hillside and crashed into a building. Footage showed mangled wreckage of the track just meters from another vehicle at the bottom of the hill. Authorities are investigating the cause of the derailment. Meanwhile, there are some reactions coming in from the locals who witnessed this tragic incident.
Eu faço essa caminhada todo dia. Hoje a Avenida da Liberdade não é mais a mesma. Está decretado luto nacional. É muito triste. As pessoas falam que é negligência, mas não é negligência. Eles têm um controle muito grande. Eu acho que foi um acidente, como que acontece de avião, acontece de carro, acontece tudo. Isso não é negligência, porque eles cuidam muito bem da manutenção. Eu vivo aqui há 20 e tal anos, eu vejo sempre a manutenção deles. Não foi... É um acidente. Foi um acidente.
Well, I believe, from what I've heard, it was coming down the hill. Something was wrong with the cable. It lost control, didn't have any braking ability. When it came around the corner, it crashed into the building. But I do believe the people at the bottom are very lucky, because I have seen videos online of them escaping on the bottom cabin. So the other one didn't hit the one at the bottom, which was actually very lucky in the end. But yeah, I think that's what happened.
Já não beneficia de certeza, quer dizer, ninguém ganha com isto, não é? Nem o turismo, nem nada, mas são acidentes que eventualmente poderiam ser evitados, mas a gente não sabe até que ponto poderiam ser evitados. Tem que ser descoberto, não é?
Shifting our focus to East Asia. Now, according to the Chinese state media, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un told Chinese President Xi Jinping that times may change, but the friendship between North Korea and China will remain the same. The meeting took place today at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing during Kim's rare foreign visit to attend the commemorations for the 80th anniversary of China's war of resistance against Japan. Chinese state broadcaster further stated the leaders discussed enhancing strategic cooperation, safeguarding peace and stability on the Korean peninsula and supporting North Korea's development path. Xi Jinping emphasized that China's position on relations with North Korea will not change and both sides should protect common interests. Details of the talks have not been fully disclosed. Dr. Satoru Nagao is a fellow at the Hudson Institute, is joining me from Tokyo. Dr. Nagao, how do you view this one-on-one meeting that has been held between Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un? And this is the first time in 6 years that Kim Jong-un has visited China. He has been there for the last 3 days, primarily at the invite of Xi Jinping to participate in the commemoration of the end of World War II. In fact, when Kim Jong-un, who has visited China in a bulletproof train, special train that has been built for the purpose of the North Korean leader's travels outside of the country, did for the first time meet Xi Jinping and Putin of Russia together. North Korea and China have close ties which were fostered especially after the Korean War in the 1950s. North Korea is amongst the most heavily sanctioned countries across the globe, along with Russia. All right, joining me on the telecast is Satoru Nagao. Satoru, how do you view this meeting that has happened between Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping earlier today?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear. And of course, if you can hear me, I do want to understand from you what's your perspective on this significant meeting between the two leaders of North Korea and China.
Yes, that's very important. Indeed, in the okay, a little technical problem. Just give me the second.
While we try to fix that audio connection with Satoru, visuals on your screens of that high-level meeting that has happened between the two leaders. China has continued to be a strong ally and all-weather friend for North Korea. North Korea has seen a large number of sanctions imposed by United Nations, international organizations, Europe and United States of America. In fact, Donald Trump, during his first term as a president of America, had tried an attempt at rapprochement with North Korea, but those talks ended up getting dissolved. Satoru is on the telecast. Mr. Satoru, if you can hear me, and of course, do want to understand from you your perspective on this meeting that has been held earlier today between the two leaders, China and North Korea.
Yes, this is important because in the past, China side a little bit upset because North Korea support Russia and providing ammunition. And there's a possibility that providing ammunition means that in the East Asia, if the China invade Taiwan or China try to raise the tension in the around Taiwan, in this case, North Korea cannot support China by raising the tension in the Korean Peninsula. So that's why if the North Korea provides a weapon and ammunition to Russia, this means that China faces a little bit disadvantage if they want to raise the tension. But now China's way of viewing towards Russia's invasion of Ukraine has completely different. Recently, the foreign minister of China visited Europe and clearly said if the U.S. focusing on Europe, U.S. cannot focusing on China. So that's why China thinks Russia's invasion in Ukraine is advantage for China. So that's why supporting the Russia's military operation in Ukraine is a good thing for China now, in the China's perception. And North Korea, what North Korea is doing is a good thing for China too. So that's why now the China and North Korea reconcile the relation and talk each other and plan something to continue the Russian invasion to Ukraine.
Yeah, and also how do you view yesterday the commemoration of the World War II, this massive military parade, a show of unity, a show of strength by Xi Jinping. There were about 26 nations that were participating, and key amongst them were the North Korean leader as well as President Putin of Russia. How do you view this coming together of these leaders, some of the most sanctioned countries of the world?
Yes, this is very important because the view from the rule-based order, the country who faces sanction should not show a strong presence in the international diplomatic stage. But China ignored it and gathered this country with more unsanctioned countries too. So that's why China clearly ignored the current rule-based order and accept countries who face sanctions and say that we are the one group. So that's why, and this is military parade, military purpose parade. So this is a very dangerous move and challenging move against the current rule-based order. But China think this is a new world order. Rule is set by them. So that is clear. China can say, this is a rule, not the current rule. Current rule is not good. New rule is, new rule led by China is good. So, and with North Korea, with Russia, with other participants, China say this is a new age. Something like that, I think.
All right. Thank you for sharing your views, Zuro, on this topic. Moving on, the hearing is now underway with the Republican chairman, Mike Crapo, delivering the opening remarks stating that each committee member will have 5 minutes to question. Kennedy Crapo says that the key topics to be covered today. He also said that the Trump administration has worked to reduce healthcare fraud amongst other priorities and says he looks forward to making America healthy again. Kennedy's Trump-inspired slogan. Democrats on the U.S. Senate Finance Committee pressured Kennedy to resign before his testimony.
It is the American people's health that's on the line here. This is the last thing, by the way, our parents need when their kids are going back to school, is to have the kind of confusion and expense. On to make these decisions? Will you make it transparent for the American people?
All the evidence is transparent.
Will you make it in advance transparent for the American people so they can comment on it?
All the evidence is transparent for the first time in history, and you were never there complaining when the pharmaceutical companies were picking those people and then running their products through with no safety testing.
You can characterize it any way you want. I quoted them today. What I said was accurate. What you said were lies. You described people Senator, moving the Titanic.
Are you saying that the mRNA vaccine has never been associated with myocarditis or pericarditis in teenagers?
I am simply.
Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I am simply trying to say that the people that you have put on that panel, after firing the entire.
You're evading the question.
No, I'm asking the questions here,
You're
Mr. Kennedy.
evading that question.
I'm asking the questions, Mr. Kennedy.
Question.
I'm asking the questions for Mr. Kennedy on behalf of parents and schools and teachers all over the United States of America who deserve so much better than your leadership. That's what this conversation is about, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, they deserve the truth, and that's what we're going to give them for the first time in the history of that agency.
All right, let's shift our focus to the other big story that we are tracking for you. This is with regards to the internal discord that is taking place in Israel. The Israeli military reservists set to be deployed to war in Gaza are raising doubts about the government's objectives as the conflict nears its unwelcome second anniversary. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel was entering the decisive stage of the war in Gaza, seeking to rally support amongst reservists and counter reports of a low turnout for the latest call-up. Joining me, all right, so those are the latest updates with regards to the reservations that are also being expressed by the Israeli military reservists in the war that Israel continues to wage against Hamas. It has been over 2 years now, and there is quite an uproar and dissent within the community, within the masses and citizens and residents in Israel. They are demanding that the war should be brought to an end and the hostages must be returned. All right, on that note, we take a short break. Thanks for watching NewsX World.